Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to our instant reaction pod. Consider this a little stoppage time as we review Hellas Verona versus Lazio. We're back with 3 points, our first victory of this 2025 calendar year. Caleb, it is great to see you. How you feeling after finally getting off a little bit of a skid here to start this year?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say the word is ecstatic or anything, but definitely sort of content. We're back. This is a game we should have won. And we move.
I won't have it, Caleb. 3 points is 3 points. Doesn't matter who it's from. Always worth celebrating. I look this match. We said it on a podcast prior. It was absolutely a must win. Hate throwing around that word. Hard to look at maybe a matchup against Hellas Verona and see a ton of overwhelming significance, but it was a must win if we wanted to keep our realistic Champions League hopes alive. And that we did, particularly given off coming off of just a great weekend of results for this Lazio side. But before we get into all of that, let's jump in where we always do. A quick run through of the starting 11 and what we saw here. You've got Nuno Tavares back at that left back position. Gigot with the start over Romagnoli, pairing him with Gila. You've got Hisai at that right back position. And then your usual Rovella Guendouzi manning the middle. Isaacson back at that right wing. Dia playing in his usual role, sitting behind Tati. Zaccagni at the left, back from his suspension, and Provedel, of course, manning the net. And you see this one getting off to an electric start. Caleb, we've talked about some of the frustrations with this Lazio side conceding early. Well, here we were on the other side of things. Gigot with a massive header from a corner. Beautiful delivery from Zaccagni. We talked about it before, but boy, is it nice to have somebody not named Luis Alberto taking those corners. At the 4-minute mark, you got Provedel coming up with a big save. And then 21st minute, just a fantastic goal by Dia. This one coming off a great release by Guendouzi to send Dia. Dia's got loads of space. And what I love about this goal is, Dia just kind of killer instinct, takes that space, but then you see him scanning his options. He's got his heads up. He sees both Isaacson making a run. He sees the defenders backpedaling, and he just puts them on their ass, really, and takes a really nice strike to find the back of the net to give Lazio a 2-0 lead. This one goes into half, and we're all kind of licking our chops and hoping that Lazio finds a way to just finish this early, and they essentially do. 58th minute mark. Dia again kind of on the ball here. He's got defenders pulled in. He's got a keeper on him. You're thinking maybe he's just going to take the strike, but no, he kind of lays it off. Perhaps a little bit more difficult than he was anticipating, but Zaccagni does just a wonderful job striking it to perfection, finding the back of the net, and essentially we see this one kind of the match just squeezed out by Lazio. Really nice job. A couple of attempts here from Verona, but finishes 3-0. Caleb, give me your 3 words or less for this one.
My 3 words were back to business. I think this is a really, really professional sort of mentality check for the team that they passed. I think it seemed like we were sort of spiraling. Spiraling is not the word. We were sort of stagnating, dipping a little bit. And I think that everyone on the team, because, there's some performances, right, that you can sort of point to one player and it's like, man, that kind of carried the game. This game, it really felt like everyone was like on their business, right, for the most part. And so it was good to see the team coming to a game where we as fans believed it was a must-win game. It seemed to me that the squad also felt that way, and they went on the road, took care of business, got a big 3 points, right back in the game, and yeah, I love to see it. I'm really, really proud of the guys.
Yeah, look, it was back to business in so many ways. I mean, this team had been, we said it, just unable to find 3 points in its last 3 or 4 matches, really dating back to a victory over Lecce on December 21st. And, in some of those matches, like that one against Atalanta, we felt a little bit hard done. But then you sprinkle in a derby match in there. You sprinkle in a match against Como where, yeah, we can kind of throw up all the variables and say, okay, we were down a man for almost an entire half. We've got a limited roster. Sure, the result is fine, but we were up a goal on a Como side. So this one very much back to business, but also back to business in the way we were playing. It was a lot more fluid attack. Players looked really sharp. For the most part, and we'll talk about maybe areas we need to clean up. But for me, it was my 3 words for this match was clinical attack covers. And what I mean by that is that we were a side that so oftentimes this year just wouldn't finish our chances, and that would come back to bite us in the ass. I think about Inter. We're playing really well, and then you look at a clinical Inter who completely flip that match on its head simply because they're able to bury our chances, and we so oftentimes don't. And this could have been a match like that, where we failed to finish the opportunities. And Hellas Verona came to play. I mean, they had a number of chances, and had they been more clinical, this could have been a really tight match. Taking a look at the statistics on this one to kind of bring that story to life, you've got expected goals from Lazio at 1.45 versus Hellas Verona at 1.3. Really, really close on that front. Hellas with more shots, 16 shots to Lazio's 14. Now, only 3 of those on target, but Lazio had 5 on target. 3 big chances missed by Hellas Verona. So when I say our clinical attack covers, in some ways it covered our ass, because it probably on paper and even just watching could have been a little bit closer had Hellas Verona finished a couple of their really, really sneaky chances. So, this is one where you need those attackers to come to life and just pick it up, because I thought there were some moments where, we were a little bit shaky in defense. So that was really, really big for me. Caleb, talk to me a little bit about like your keys to the match on this one, and where you think we ultimately were able to find all 3 points and walk away with the 3-0 victory.
Man, I missed the first 30 minutes. I'll admit that. So I can't speak on that. I missed 2 goals. But one thing that it seemed that Baroni made some sort of adjustments this match, because the way that Rovella and Guendouzi were sort of occupying some spaces when they were going back, and our fullbacks were really starting to get pushed up a lot, almost like it's this this popular trend of inside fullbacks coming in, inverted ones. Whatever Baroni did, I couldn't analyze it well enough in the match, but whatever he did, I think that it really got our mojo back in the attack, because even though our defense has been really poor, you mentioned clinical finishing, but we haven't even really been creating really high quality chances in this sort of stretch of games. I thought this game we really were able to unbalance this side of Verona. Keep in mind, they're like the worst defense in the league, I think. But for me, the team was much more in sync, this game. I think that our wingers were actually pretty effective. That makes a huge difference for the 2 central players. We had moments of brilliance. Our defense, for the most part, even though there were times where we were caught in transition, we're solid. Again, being able to rely on someone like Gigot to come off the bench, come in and fill in, scores a goal. We talk about set pieces. How do we get this game started? A set piece goal, right? There's a lot of these things that have been working under Baroni came back this game, whether it's because of a tactical shift or more so the guys were sort of back in mentally. I'm not sure what it was, but this was much more, you mentioned before, much more what we've become accustomed to with Baroni ball.
And it helps that you've got Zaccagni back, you've got Mario Gila back, and so you've got a little bit of rest. You know, a full week. These guys have a little bit of rest. Now we're kind of looking ahead briefly. You've got this stretch of fixtures coming up that is going to challenge us. But for this match, they definitely seemed a little bit more lively. The passing was great. I thought our midfield, that combo between Rovella and Guendouzi, was
Mhm.
really, really strong. Obviously, Guendouzi
It
walks away
was.
with an assist from this one, but I thought you saw Rovella, who maybe the past two matches hadn't been as elite as he has been. Not that he's been bad, but
Yeah.
we're accustomed to see him at a certain level this season, and I thought today was one where you kind of saw him dominating in the way that he was.
Yeah.
And so, I thought kind of all starting from that midfield, but you said it, the set piece. I mean, what a game changer when you're failing to create, which we had been these prior couple matches, and you start off 2 minutes into this one, you earn a corner and it's a nice, dangerous ball, and you've got somebody like Gigot who can find the end of it. Fantastic way. But I was concerned, that starting off quick oftentimes has its drawbacks, particularly for Lazio. Historically, it's like, okay, we score really quickly, and then all of a sudden, guys get a little bit too loose. Were you
Mhm.
concerned about that under Baroni?
I am. I think that I still think the defensive solidity that we had for a while there with Sadi, we're not seeing sort of that in this Baroni side. It isn't become a state. Which, funny enough, a lot of people who kind of, I think a lot of us in general will come in with Baroni. It's like, okay, at least he can handle the defensive side well because he's used to having teams that have to punch above their weight. And how do you punch above your weight? You're really good defensively. And he's had good teams with really good defenses. Verona, when he was there, he did some great stuff defensively. So it's interesting to me that defense hasn't really become an identity of this team yet. And I can't really put my finger on it, on what it is, because we've seen more defensively sound teams under Baroni with less quality. So my opinion is he now has attacking talent and is able to play a little more of that positive soccer that he wants to play. And he's sort of also in a way learning, like, okay, I can finally play some attacking football, but now I'm a little too unbalanced because it used to be just all defense, and now I'm like, oh man, now I can actually have some fun with my tactics. My players' quality has increased. So I think it's just a process of also Baroni just learning to balance the two, because now he has weapons available to him, like a Zaccagni, right? Where he can have a little more control over games. And just as the players are learning to get adjusted on that stuff, the system and all that, I do think Baroni is also under his own process of learning exactly what he wants out of this team and how to make everything click and stay balanced.
Well, on the topic of Baroni, let's jump into some of the substitutions before we get into our player analysis, our man of the match, Bidona, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to talk about some of the substitutions because we were having some interesting conversations in
Mm-hmm.
our text group about Baroni's subs here today, and so I want to bring that here to the podcast. We've got a number of subs that you can look at both ways. So let's talk about it. First, you
Mm-hmm.
see, I think the first set of substitutions came in the 66th minute. Dele Bashiru, Pedro, and Romagnoli for Gigot, Zaccagni, and Isaacson. You see Pellegrini come in for Nuno, and then 84th minute, you see Castrovilli for Rovella. Talk to me
Mm-hmm.
about your overall sentiments, and then I'll jump in with some of mine.
Yeah, I think we're definitely a little confused with some of these. I think particularly the Dele Bashiru one, where we are so thin on midfield section that actually, for the first time in a few games, we actually have two midfield options on the bench. Three, if you include Castrovilli, who did come into this match. But I was surprised to see Bashiru come in again on the wing instead of giving guys like Rovella and Guendouzi, who have become so key to our success, particularly when we start getting into this heavy schedule, more congested games that come back to back. I think the move was to take out one of those guys earlier, both of them earlier, and help get a little bit of rest and rotation coming in. Castrovilli, I was actually surprised that he came in, considering he was been rumored to leave out. And it's been a bit weird. I don't know. I'm not really sure Baroni's thinking on Bashido on the wing. He's done it a second time now. He did it last match. Bashido can play. He's a versatile player. He can play there. Not sure what the thinking is behind that though.
So, initially kind of seeing some of these subs, I maybe would have questioned it, but taking a step back and then seeing what we had left on the bench, who we ultimately used and didn't use, and kind of the situation at hand, it started to make a little bit more sense to me. So starting with Dele Bashiru, I think, obviously Rovella and Ganduzi have to find a way to rest. But so does Zaccagni, who has obviously had injuries and is probably more prone to injuries than Rovella and Guendouzi, and he hadn't played last match due to suspension, and so I feel like maybe the call there was let's protect Zaccagni first and get him off, and when you look at your options, it really starts to limit what you have available. So you go Dele Bashiru because he's also taking off Isaacson for Pedro.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro hasn't played in a while. He needs a run of matches so that we can get him back in form. So right off the bat, you're already putting Pedro in. Who else is there to throw in the wing? And so I think so I think just by mere choices, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And then, of course, Pellegrini for Nuno, that makes all the sense in the world. Nuno was getting banged up. We need to obviously keep him rested and healthy. And then that last one, again, when you see the name Castro, I mean, we were all yearning for Ibrahimovic. Like we want to see him. We're up 3-0. It's Hellas Verona. Let us see this kid without any huge risk involved. But then again, taking a step back and saying, all right, look, we had some shaky moments. And if we're up 2-0 or even 3 and we concede a goal early and all of a sudden there's some pressure, Baroni knows we've got to find all 3 points. But imagine Ibrahimovic is going to play as a winger. We've now subbed in those wingers. We have to get Rovella. Ideally, you get Rovella and Guendouzi off, but we're out of subs. So he elects to go with Rovella. What other options do we have? But we've got Castrovilli, and then your other midfielder is going to be Toma Basic. So either way, you've got somebody who is kind of out, and Castrovilli maybe has the potential for a little bit more value if he looks good. So I don't know. That's kind of my thinking. If I was putting on my Baroni hat, why he went that way. Does any of that make sense?
No, I get it. It's limited. I mean, either way, you're going to be. Either way, it's okay. What's the best I can do? What I have situation, and personally, I would have gone with the new guy, Ibrahimovic on the wing, along with Pedro, and then Ron Castrovilli and Dele Bashiru as the midfield pivots, and kept in both Dia and Tati, just because even though those guys run a lot, those 2 midfielders run just as much, if not more. And that's why I would approach it. You can put in Ibrahimovic in a low risk position.
Yeah, and you could put him in for I guess the options are because he's kind of it seems like he's a versatile attacking player, can play that attacking midfield spot. So maybe if you wanted to take out Dia, but again, looking at the players who you have to get out, it's Rovella, it's Zaccagni, ideally Guendouzi, and then the players that were left on the bench, it's Tijani Noslin, who still coming off injury, probably I imagine wasn't ready to play. Marusic, didn't need to come off. I thought played pretty darn well.
Yeah,
Basic is out. I think Basic, unless we are like in an absolute dire situation, and then from there you've just got your 2 keepers on. So I don't know. It's For me, it's probably easier to second guess some of the subs until you look at what we actually have available and you go, okay, like maybe makes a little bit more sense though. Maybe you do throw Tati in as the winger, right? I think maybe that's, but we haven't seen that, so there's no way like you wouldn't see that from
Yeah.
Baroni, right? Like I
Right.
know
Right.
you and I
Right.
have talked about his ability to do it, but we haven't seen him in that position since he's been at Lazio. So
Yeah.
there's probably no way that, and Dia as well. We know Dia can play out wide, but we haven't seen it here. So I think
Right.
Baroni is probably not going to go that route.
Yeah. For sure.
Give me your man of the match.
It's really between two guys for me. I think there's a lot of good performances across the board. Really, I thought everyone outside of maybe one person was really quite solid. Um, but I'm stuck in between Dia and Zaccagni.
Okay.
Those are my two picks. I'm gonna go with Dia. Had a fantastic game. Had a goal and assist this game. I thought that his goals set up the goal for Zaccagni, but they also set up himself really for that first goal. Did really well to pounce on that opportunity. Showed again just another clinical finish. That's what you want to see from your striker. Still, we're both tooting that horn of why is Dia not the one playing striker and Tati playing behind him? I just feel we can really get so much more out of him in that position. But yeah, Dia has been really sharp. It's been really great to see. He was what we were talking about him signing of the season, right? He dipped down a little bit, injury, got malaria or something like that while he was with who was
Senegal.
Senegal, right? Senegal.
Yep.
And so it's good to see him back because we need those goals from coming from the middle. But yeah, Dio was awesome today. And it's not just the scoring part of it. I thought he was really just sharp, period, when it comes to linking up the play today, finding outlets quickly, good touches. Dio was just really sharp across the board.
Well, I'm going to likewise give it to Dia. Shout out to Adrian Trita, who also helps us on some of our content pieces. Shout out, happy birthday, Adrian. It's his birthday on the 19th. Dia is the number 19. All around makes sense. So, man of the match across the board. I agree, Caleb. I mean, he was tremendous today. Even before the goal, like there were some moments early. I just thought he was doing well to connect a couple pieces. I was really focused on him, just trying to see what he was doing off the ball, just because, prior to last match, it seemed like he was not involved at all, earned a couple bidones from us. So I was actually trying to focus on what he was doing in this one. But obviously he walks away with a goal and an assist. So pads those stats a little bit, and just what he does in the box when he has the ball is kind of just the missing piece that Tati kind of fails to bring. But I thought he was great. Agree, Zaccagni. And the goal with Zaccagni was great. Of course, he gets an assist on a corner, but what I liked pretty early on, he was just fighting. It was that classic captain mentality. It was good to see him back. I thought he set the tone early on, and then in a way that maybe Luis Alberto had later in his tenure with us. He just had license to roam. You saw him on the right side. You saw him behind the attackers without ever sacrificing his defensive responsibilities. So, and then the other one, for me, just Rovella was really, really good. It was nice to see kind of a bounce back game, and it's interesting because we talk about websites like FootMob and who scored and whatever, and those are valuable websites. I use them here. Like I pull up FootMob just as a gut check sometimes, and curious to see the stats on players, and I use that as a way to inform what I'm seeing, my eye test in combo with that. I thought it was really interesting because when I was evaluating who my man of the match was and kind of my top players, and it's since changed once the match finished, but with like 20 minutes to go in the match, it had Rovella as our like worst performer in the starting 11, and I was just like, there's just no way. I'm watching this guy, and this was like a classic match where he's like winning the ball. He's kind of connecting. I think he was really sharp. He was making some really nice runs today on the ball too.
Yeah.
Really was hoping he'd find his first goal. in a Lazio shirt. But I just wanted to throw that out there. That was really interesting. But they've since slightly changed that kind of once the match was finished. But I think those sites are unfortunately where a lot of fans that don't watch the matches and then tune into something like that will use that as kind of the crux for whatever point they're trying to make. But on the flip, Caleb, who was your bidane?
Just one more thing before we're on there. Another big part. Hisai. I think Hisai has been really good. He's had 2 games he started for us out of nowhere. Come in immediately and put in some shifts, man. I mean, shout out to him.
So happy you mentioned that. I've had that in my notes. He deserves it. Talk about a professional, right? I mean, the guy just has not even been allowed to, I don't know if he's been training, hasn't been involved in the squad. You don't hear anything from him. He's not bitching. He's not moaning. And then he's called up, and both times he's been called up, he's been massive. He was great. He was really good today. So I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, I mean, as for worst player of the day, I think there's only one option here. It's Tati. I think Tati was really the odd one out from what I was seeing. Even as Saxon was like, okay. Saxon was okay doing this, whatever he does.
Just being mid. Just
being mid, yeah. Like, he wasn't bad. He was being mid. He's just being mid. That's what he does. But yeah, just Saxon did his thing. But I thought that this is quite poor today. He looked like he was a step below everyone else out there on the pitch today. A step behind, slow, not clinical. It's been a rough stretch for Tati. Definitely a lot of questions I think need to be asked about him as we head into the second half of the season. Still have a second half of the season to go. Again, I'm a big proponent. Please play him behind the striker. I think we'll get so much more value to him. I think Tati's when it's time at New York City FC, he always shined when he was that second striker role. And he would always get 14 goals, 11 assists, 11 goals, 10 assists. He's like that. He's like that kind of player. Put him in a Griezmann type role, and you're going to get a ton of value, not just because of how much he runs. You can use more of his running ability in that spot behind the striker. You can also he's put in some incredible passes this year that you just holy crap. I mean, these are like midfielder type level passes where he set up teammates or played him through. He's got good vision, a good ability to do that. And I just think that him in those pockets where he's in between the striker and the midfield, he can really thrive in that position. We can see the best of him there. But right now, it's just like that guy up top. He's just not really cutting it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I threw out those 2 players in my notes, Tati and mid Saxon, Isaacson. But I think you're right. Just particularly really sealed that award when Nuno played him a really nice ball, and right in front of goal. And it's one of those ones where it's like how it's hard. It's so much harder to miss that than not. How do you not get that on frame? Right? I mean, literally, it's like a poke in, and he does great. And that's the thing with Tati that is so disturbing. There's like 10 things he's required to do, and he does 9 of them. And it's like, all right, you're there. And he just falls off of the cliff at that point. And I don't know how he missed that. It's really frustrating because he is somebody that you want to root for because he gives you everything that you admire, or at least that I admire in a player.
Yeah.
Above all things, I want to see fight. I want to see somebody that gives effort. I want to see somebody that's a great teammate. And he does all of those things. He does, he does a little bit too much when it comes to the theatrics and throwing his body around and trying to get a call. But aside from that, I mean, he's just such a great team player. And then when he's in those moments, whether it is his fault or not, sometimes it's man, just really bad luck. It's of course it's Tati. What's the name on the back of the shirt? Of course that really unlucky thing is going to happen to him.
Yeah.
And it's such a bummer because now we're a season and a half into it. And you just start to wonder, if we're going to take that next step as a club, Can it be with Tati leading the line? We need somebody that is guaranteed 15 plus goals in league play. Like we need somebody that's scratching that surface of 20 goals. And Tati is a far cry from that because he doesn't finish those easy ones. And today against Hellas Verona, it was one of those matches where I was rooting for him to walk away with a goal, and it just didn't happen. So it's a bummer. Like, where do you think? I guess that is the question, Caleb. Like, give me your answer, and then would love to hear from our listeners live on YouTube. And then if you're listening to this in audio format after we record live, shoot us a message. Let us know on Twitter, Instagram. Give us your thoughts. Is Tati Castellanos the future of Lazio at that number 9? Can Lazio be a Champions League team with Tati leading the line? What's your answer, Caleb?
No. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a place in this team.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough. Like another cool thing about Tati as well, that he's just fun to watch. When he's on his game, he's so fun to watch. He's got this flair to him that's really fun and refreshing to watch. But again, I don't think that Tati's never been a true 9. That's never been his game. I really don't understand why Dia plays behind. We all were like, surely Dia is like the more true 9. He's gonna get thrown up top. Wow, that's great. We need that focal point up there, and Tati plays behind to the side of him, right? Like that's like Tati in a roaming role. Because he's really aggressive at making runs, because he's really good at finding those pockets, he does get in positions to score. He's able to play off the focal point really well. He can't be the focal point though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer the question, no. Tati is not the future of the 9 for Lazio, but can Tati be the 10 second striker of this team? I think he can. We just need to see some reps there.
Yeah.
You know, we just need to see some reps.
It's interesting too, because when we talk about Ciro Immobile and the type of player he was, it really, really props him up as an even better striker than so many. Even us. I think it's interesting because obviously we think the world of him. I mean, he's our best striker that's donned the shirt, one of the most underrated players of all time. But this kind of goes into how underrated he was, because when we talk about Ciro Immobile and all these things that he did so well, we kind of talk about that one spot being like, but he's not an elite world-class finisher, right? I'm like, doesn't mean he's not good at finishing. And then this, you kind of comp it, right? And you look at it and you go, yeah. I mean, he was freaking awesome at finishing. I mean, he was incredible at finishing. These goals are like, these are Cheadle goals.
Yeah.
We probably just were so expected of like 36 goals, 29 goals, 28. Cheadle, how could you miss this chance? Like, well, everybody misses chances. And now you see what an actual striker that's not elite at finishing looks like. Ciro Immobile was a finisher. Right. And that point is even made to myself, because I've even said it. Now I'm like, no, this is what not being able to finish looks like.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a busy time now, and real quick before we look at the fixtures ahead, the table as of now, 21 matches into this thing. It's looking quite good for us. So we are 4th in the table with 39 points. Ahead of us, Atalanta with 43. Inter, who is yet to play this weekend's match, at 44. Napoli, first in the table with 50. Napoli has played 2 more matches than Inter, so that's going to be, looks to be the battle right there for the Scudetto race. Right behind us, Juventus in 5th with 37 points, level on matches played. And then Fiorentina, having dropped early this morning, they tied today, so with 20 matches played, so they've got a match in hand. They were at 33 points, but massive, because assuming that match is a victory, we are 3 points ahead of them. That was such a critical match. Milan, having lost this weekend, furthering their gap. Right now, it looks to be a race between Lazio and Juve. Fiorentina, of course, still kind of in there if you want to throw Bologna in there. But when I look at this squarely, Lazio, Juve for that fourth spot. What a race this has a chance to be. And the fixtures upcoming. We are back with Europa League play on Thursday against Real Sociedad. And then 1 week from today, Caleb, we've got Fiorentina. And we thought Hellas Verona was a must win. I'm not saying that this is a must win, but this is the test. This is for us in this Champions League. This is a swing of 6 points in this fixture. So and then we've got Braga, and we start really getting into this, and you'll have Coppa Italia resuming soon. So while players are semi-rested, we've got to pick up points. But this one against Fiorentina is going to be really, really interesting. Before we close out, Caleb, anything you want to touch on about the transfer market, how hopeful you maybe are on a scale of 1 to 10 that will close something in addition to Ibrahimovic?
I mean, honestly, it looks like we're showing an aggression that we rarely have shown in January. I'm not ever going to get my hopes high, but we got one signing before January 15th, which I think is maybe the 6th time ever in our history. I believe I saw some guy put a stat, I think 5 of the names on there. Ibrahimovic was a 6, maybe in history, before we signed January 15th. Crazy stat like that. But yeah, I mean, we got some pretty good ties. I think it is going to be completely dependent on whether we can start moving on some guys like an Isaacson, like a Castrovilli, or a Basic potentially as well. If that doesn't happen, I don't really see anything getting closed, but it's encouraging at least to see names getting linked to us and some sort of real concrete stuff out there about us really trying to support Baroni in this window because he earned it.
Yeah, Casade looks to be the closest right now. I think, in my scale of 1 to 10 in terms of hopes, I am pretty hopeful, but also cautious about how these things typically go. But I think there is a lot of hope that Lazio is getting closer to meeting the asking price for Casade at Chelsea. If that happens, we're looking to secure a guest to chat a little bit about Casade and what he looks like, somebody who covers Chelsea really, really closely. And I think that would be massive, obviously getting guys back. And then, we'll see interesting rumors out there. Isaacson being linked to an exit, but given his role today and, just kind of the options we have at wing, I think it would really, really put Baroni in a tough place, despite what we think of Isaacson, and I think it'll be tough for his value to grow. I don't know that that'll happen, but also see the challenge that it puts Baroni in taking away another winger, because we kind of ran through some of those options, and it was not great, but couple big ones, and here we are. If you would have told us 6 months ago that late January we would securely be in 4th position, we would have scoffed at you. But 4th position, Champions League, top of the table or bottom of the table, it is sempre forte.